Duncan's Barge Trouble, written by Thomas Audio Productions and narrated by Thomas Audio Productions. It was a very busy time at the wharf. Both standard and narrow gauge engines were working hard, pushing and pulling freight cars around to the different keys. But it wasn't just them who were busy. All the boats and barges were busy too. They were so busy that the wharf manager decided he better get another barge to help out with the extra loads. One day, Peter Sam came into the wharf with some freight cars. He parked them in a siding next to a very irritated-looking barge. "I'm Peter Sam," said Peter Sam cheerily. "Who are you?" "I'm Bulstrode," said the barge. "And what time do you call this?" "I'm sorry," said Peter Sam, "but my crew was late this morning." "Pah! You should have still tried to get here on time. I have very important work to do, and I can't do it without you bringing my loads on time." Peter Sam was cross. "I said I was sorry. What more do you want?" "For you to get here on time. But it should be no surprise that you be unreliable. You're only a toy engine after all." "Toy?" squeaked Peter Sam. "Well, let me tell you—" "Don't bother arguing with him," said Peter Sam's driver. "You have a passenger train to take. Come on, let's go." And Peter Sam puffed crossly away to pick up Gertrude and Millicent. That afternoon, Duncan came to the wharf. He was already in a bad temper because he had to pull freight trains all day. He also had to bring his loads to Bulstrode. "Come on, hurry up, you small banana peel." "I know you're not talking to me," said Duncan. "I don't see any other puny little engines in my sights," snapped Bulstrode. "I had to drop off cars along the way," said Duncan. "You're not the only one that needs goods in these parts." "I only care about my stuff," said Bulstrode, "and it's you engines' jobs to get it to me on time." "Well," said Duncan, "let me tell you." And from then on, it was trouble. Every time Duncan would come down to the wharf and meet up with Bulstrode, they would constantly argue and hurl countless insults at each other. And any other engine nearby would get so annoyed with it. Skarloey Rheneas and Duke would often try to talk some sense into them and break them up, but it did no good. Duncan and Bulstrode argued for a whole week straight. Eventually, the engines got fed up. They decided to hold a meeting at Crovan's Gate Sheds. "Duncan and Bulstrode are bad enough on their own," said Mighty. "And together they're even worse," added Mac. "I'm really tired of their arguing," said Skarloey. "It makes me not even want to go to the wharf if I know they're both going to be there." The engines tried to think of ways to stop Bulstrode and Duncan from arguing, but nobody had a good idea. And it wasn't just the engines that were getting irritated. The slate cars were getting irritated too. And they were having a discussion in Crovan's Gate Yard too. "Duncan and Bulstrode are a pain in the buffers," said one slate car. "Every time Duncan brings us there and we're near that Bulstrode, I just want to tell them to shut up," said another. "Bulstrode?" said a voice. "I know Bulstrode." The slate cars looked up and saw an old standard gauge quarry freight car on a siding. "How do you know Bulstrode?" asked the slate cars. "Years ago, Bulstrode used to live at Knapford Harbor, and he used to aggravate me and my friends all the time. Until a couple of friends of ours managed to pay him out thanks to a little green caterpillar with red stripes." "Ooh, ooh," said the slate cars. "Please tell us what happened." So the old quarry car told the slate cars a story about how Percy accidentally pushed some freight cars into Bulstrode. This gave the slate cars a naughty idea. They began discussing plans. "We'll do it tomorrow," they said. The next morning, Duncan made his way to the Blue Mountain Quarry to load some slate cars bound for the wharf. The whole day, Duncan was thinking of what he'd say to Bulstrode when he got to the wharf. After the slate cars were loaded, Duncan made his way down the line and not so long afterwards entered the wharf. But he wasn't concentrating. "Come on, Duncan, slow down. You're in the wharf now," said his driver. But Duncan wasn't listening. The slate cars then counted. 1, 2, 3, now! And together they surged forward, knocking Duncan's driver and farmer off the footplate. "Oh, help!" cried Duncan. "Stop pushing me!" The slate cars laughed and laughed. On! They shouted, "On!" Duncan was out of control, and he couldn't stop. Bulstrode, who was just ahead, heard a lot of whistling and shouting, but didn't pay any attention. He then looked up and saw Duncan barreling towards him. "Oh no!" he cried. "Not again!" There was nothing left for Duncan to do but shut his eyes. Crash! Duncan smashed through the bumpers and plunged into Bulstrode's cargo hold as the slate cars piled in behind him. Luckily, no one was hurt. Soon floating cranes arrived to rescue Duncan. Mr. Percival spoke to him. "I know Bulstrode started everything by calling you a name, but you should have been the bigger engine and ignored him. If you wouldn't have been so immature, Duncan, none of this would have happened." "Yes, sir. Sorry, sir," said Duncan. And the wharf manager spoke very severely to Bulstrode. "If this behavior continues, I know a nice beach in Augsburg that's looking for another attraction." Bulstrode gulped. He didn't want to go back on another beach. Duncan and Bulstrode were both soon repaired, and luckily for the other engines, they learned their lesson. They get on with their work, and if they must cross paths, they don't say a word to one another.